Okay, so we are back with the tier 10. So the tier 10 is pretty much more the same as of the tier 9. It has 150 millimeters armor here and here, just like the tier 9. The lower front plate increases by like 5 millimeters. This thicker strip of armor here is still 240 millimeters, just like the tier 9. However, the upper front plate increases from 180 to 220 armor. So the armor overall does increase, and because of the extra sloping here, the overall front armor increases dramatically, and this thing has about 260 effective armor all over the front, and it's going to be pretty formidable. Like, trying to pen this thing from the front is going to be kind of difficult in some sort of scenarios, especially if it angles, especially if it's able to use a corner to angle its armor a little bit. So yeah, this thing frontally is going to be a bit of a monster, but just like with the other tanks in the line, if as soon as you get the rear or the side, this thing is basically just butter. It's basically it basically may as well be like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a vehicle tier 10 that's really lightly armored, something like a Leopard or something. It's not that bad, but it's still pretty weak. In fact, just to put it in perspective, T62A has more side armor than this thing. So yeah, this thing's side armor, just that puts it in perspective just how horrendously bad that side armor is. But yeah, the front armor should be able to make up for that for the most part. Turret is exactly the same as the previous vehicle, same cupolas, same everything, exactly the same turret. The guns, however, that mount in that turret are different. So the 120mm changes again. This time it gains 7 more penetration on the standard rounds. The aiming time and accuracy get even better, as you expect, it's tier higher. And yeah, this 120mm gun looks pretty devastating, honestly. I mean, 5.5 rounds a minute, and I think the highest penetration on 120mm that's on a heavy tank in the game. So yeah, it's pretty damn awesome. And I think I actually think about that. Is that the highest penetration on a heavy tank in the game? That might be higher standard penetration. I mean, so that's a pretty interesting factor if that's right. I think that's right, but I could be wrong. There might be a heavy tank I'm not thinking of. But yeah, let me know in the comments if that's right. As for the 130mm, it has, I think, the third highest alpha damage on a tier 10 heavy tank in the game, not including the THE cannon on the Type 5. The Type 5, the E100 are the only two vehicles that have higher alpha damage on AP guns than this thing. The Type 5 gets, I believe, 600, and the E100 gets 750 from the 150. So this thing gets 560 alpha damage on its shots from a 130mm gun. It's basically like having Jagdtiger alpha damage on a heavy tank, which honestly will blow the Jagdtiger out of the water in terms of survivability, even though it's only got 100 more health. The overall effective armor on this thing just completely obliterates the Jagdtigers, although the Jagdtiger completely annihilates this thing in terms of rate of fire. Like, I think the Jagdtiger's rate of fire is actually pretty close to the 120mm rate of fire, but it has 560 alpha. Let's see, I think it's like 5.2 or something like that. Yeah, 5.26. Yeah, see how close. The rate of fire on the Jagdtiger is nearly as good as the 120mm rate of fire, but yeah. Actually, surprisingly close stat-wise too. Huh. Interesting. But yeah, the Jagdtiger's gun is pretty monsters at tier 9. The rate of fire on tier 10 heavy tank is going to be a lot slower, but it's still going to be brutal alpha damage from this thing. And the one thing I can really think of that will be a bit of an issue on this vehicle is the pretty abysmal reload time. I mean, 13.04 second reload time. That's not great by any stretch of the imagination. Sure, the the aiming time and accuracy are pretty good for a gun of that size, but that reload time still seems pretty meh to me. I don't really think it needs to be as long as that. I think maybe they could take like another half a second off that. Like, I just think 13.04 is just a wee bit too long. But yeah, like I'm not the balancing department, so who knows? They may end up nerfing it or something. But yeah. So looking at the actual guns, like the differences between them. So yet again, as as is apparently becoming a trend with this line, the big gun gets kind of shafted in terms of penetration. Meanwhile, the smaller gun gets the ridiculous 325 penetration APCR rounds. So yeah, that trend just apparently seems to be a thing with this line. So yeah. As for mobility, this thing feels roughly equivalent to Tier 9, just obviously with the improved armor effectiveness and stuff. But I will just quickly tell you, the current version of the Badger, I faced one of those in this thing, and the Badger is able to, well, I actually didn't have the damage panel active in that game, so I don't know what type of ammo he was using, but the Badger was easily able to wreck this thing, but I have a strong feeling that the Badger is going to be nerfed quite significantly whenever it comes to the next version of the test. That thing is kind of a monster right now. That thing is, I think, STB1 level when it was on the test server. And if you don't know what I mean by that, the STB1 on in its original form on the test server, I think it was in like 8.11, had, I believe, the old M48 patterns soft stats with a reload that just blew it out of the water. So it was just mental. It was incredibly good. People would run that thing with a vertical stabilizer on the test server and just hit every single shot they fired on the move. And then it was only when they got to the live server they nerfed the stealth nerfed the soft stats before I knew about them. And yeah, that's why the STB1 never hit like massive popularity like expectations people had for it. So yeah, this thing here though, I feel like it's pretty well rounded. Definitely needs to still remain complete front towards the enemy at all times. Second something gets to your side, it's going to just destroy you because you just don't have the armor to survive anything getting around you at all. It just will not end well for you at all. But thankfully you do have decent mobility, so you should be able to react decently well to just sudden threats. So yeah, these things, just going to say it to end off, these things are not like Japanese heavies. These things, I think, are going to require a very, very specific playstyle. It's not going to just be angle 45 degrees and drive towards the enemy, because that's just what you do in a Type 5 heavy. Like, you angle 45 degrees and just watch everything bounce off, meanwhile you just you just right click on the tank you want to shoot, and you do damage, like 300, 400 damage guaranteed, pretty much every single time. So, yeah, these things are not going to be like that. These things are actually going to require a pretty solid amount of knowledge and like how to play the tank. You're going to have to actually really experience these tanks in order to play them well. Because there really isn't too many tanks in the game like this. And I really can't think of too many that are really like this here in the game at the moment. Where they just have all the armor at the front and no armor at the side. Like, the closest thing I can think of is like an M6, but the M6 doesn't have anywhere near the front armor. Like, what's the front armor on this thing? 101? Nah, nowhere near. Like, to give you an idea, the M6 is a tier where, like, some of the heavy tanks have like 170 pen, so nowhere near close enough to being like a teacher of like how to actually play these tanks. I can't think of a single tank that has so much armor at the front. Germany, well, I guess you could kind of argue the Tiger P, but the Tiger P doesn't have like the weak point in this like upper part of the front plate. Like this, like these sort of things do. But yeah, these things are pretty unique playstyle wise. There's not really anything that's been in the game like this before, and I feel like these are going to be really interesting addition to the game. Like, they're either going to be loved or they're going to be absolutely despised, and I would honestly recommend trying these vehicles out in the on the test server. I get the feeling they're probably going to be up my alley, providing they remain roughly the same or get a little bit better. I feel like they could get a tiny bit better. Meanwhile, the Badger needs to be, in my opinion, nerfed a bit drastically, in my opinion. But yeah, let's go on to the thing I mentioned earlier about like talking about Tier 7.